Welcome to Bravo 22 and to our YouTube channel, which is all made possible by the Royal British Legion and the Drive Project. I am Debbie Evans and I have been a member of Bravo 22 for 6 years. I've been able to take part in numerous art and theatre projects over the years. However, my highlight has been our play Unspoken, which we performed at the Edinburgh Festival and then toured to various theatres around the country. This enabled us to tell our stories to a wider audience, giving the public a better understanding of what military veterans experience. So I would encourage you all to tell your military friends and family about Bravo 22 and to subscribe to the channel and like or share on Facebook. Don't forget to ask questions during the session via the live chat bar, and we will answer as many as possible during the interview. I would now like to introduce you to our guest for today, the renowned actor of screen and stage, Lesley Sharp. Good morning, Lesley. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Nervous, but we're doing well. We'll just plod through this one.
Okay.
Can I start off then with an obvious question then? What prompted you to an acting career?
That's a tricky one, Debs, because there wasn't one particular moment that I can remember where I thought, this is what I want to do. It was something that really from a very young age, like a lot of kids, making up stories and playing imaginary games and then wanting to do plays in front of your mum and dad, all of that sort of stuff. I was very much, one of those kind of kids. And then I heard that there was a local drama group and I wanted to join that actually at a really young age, about 8, and was very disappointed when I found out that I couldn't go along to that until I was 14. So I waited and waited and waited. And I always loved watching telly. I was kind of really drawn in by the sort of the way that you could escape by watching these stories, and then when I went to the local drama group, it just really kicked in for me. And then I went to the Manchester Youth Theatre. Actually, there's this perception that actors are very extrovert creatures, and I think that's not always true actually. And I was one of those kids at school who actually was, I kept my head down. I wasn't the most popular, I wasn't the most pretty, I didn't do drama at school. So finding this local drama group where, a lot of people who didn't quite fit into how you're supposed to be at school, we all congregated there, and it was like I sort of found, I felt like I'd found a group of people that I belonged to. And then the progression from that was to do the Manchester Youth Theatre for the summer, which was like a sort of summer school, and you just acted, you just did plays for the whole summer. That was amazing. And then I auditioned for drama school and I didn't get in, which was absolutely mortifying and upsetting. And then I worked in London for a year. I left home. I was brought up in the north of England and I left home. I worked in London for a year and I reapplied to drama school. And I got into the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and then sort of more or less that was it. It was kind of, this is where I've always wanted to be. This is what I've always wanted to do. This just feels right. And then I was lucky enough to get work almost straight from drama school, and and I've been doing it ever since. And it's just there was never anything else. It wasn't like I wanted to be a vet or I wanted to be a policewoman or I wanted to be an archaeologist. It was like I always wanted to be an actress. But I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky that it worked out for me.
Well, we've enjoyed many productions, and I in particular, even though I'm from the right side of the Pennines, enjoyed one of your first ones, which is Rita, Sue and Bob too, because I've come from Bradford, as you know. But just going back to what you said about you were very shy in that, with doing Bravo, I was never an actor, but it gives you such a release, doesn't it? You can be
Yeah.
somebody else, but be you in that somebody else.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the other thing as well about acting, is that unlike being a writer or a photographer or someone who paints pictures or composes music, is that what you do as an actor is you work with other people and you're trying as a group to make something that hopefully other people will enjoy. So it's a very communal experience, and that is wonderful because actually you stop thinking about yourself so much um, because you're getting on with, and you don't feel quite so self-conscious because you're connecting with other people. That's the most important thing, and then you stop being quite so self-conscious, I think.
Yeah, it helps a lot, doesn't it? What challenges do you think you've faced within your career with whilst you've been doing this?
I think the biggest thing, I'm a mentor at my old drama school, so I talk to people who are just at the beginning of their career and trying to get up and running, trying to get an agent, trying to get that first job, talking about what happens when they go into the audition space, all of that. And I think one of the most difficult things that actors face coming out of drama school is unemployment. And if you've been at drama school for 3 years and every day you've been going in and you've been doing classes and you've been working on your voice and you've been working on text and you've been hanging out with your friends and you've just been talking about what you love doing every day for 3 years, is that the shock of what it's like when you're not working and feeling that you desperately want to be creative, but there's nowhere for you to do that because you're not in a play or you haven't been offered a TV role, or that's really hard. Is and keeping your self-esteem going, keeping your self-confidence going, and it's really hard when people do that thing where very often, in a well-meaning way, but it strikes to your heart, is when they go, "Oh, you're an actor, but you're not working, or you're resting," or they joke about the fact that you're working in a restaurant or you're working in a bar, but you're an actor, and how many people do that? Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just
totally.
so it's the dipping in and out of feeling utterly exhilarated and connected when you're doing your job, and then feeling sometimes really like, oh my goodness, will I ever work again, when you're not, and it's kind of finding ways of being mentally strong so that you don't succumb to giving yourself a good kicking, because you're not working, because it's not your fault. It's a very oversubscribed profession.
Well, that leads us nicely in a question from one of our members, Mr. Ian Rudd, that asks, how difficult is it to find good, enjoyable parts to play? And do they find you or do you find them?
Well, I think the thing is that it's like everything, isn't it? It's like you start off in your early 20s and you've got all sorts of ideas about the way things should be and what you want to do, and then the landscape looks very different when you hit certain lifetime moments. So maybe a serious relationship, or having a child, or the death of a parent, or all of those things. They're bumps in the road that change your perspective about what it is you want to do. And then of course, in the world that I operate in, some of it is down to luck, being seen by people, being offered work. I mean, unless you're someone who from the get-go has a very strong impulse to create work that you are making for yourself. So unless you're self-propelled, you're dependent on being offered work by other people. And I think the only power really that an actor has is to either say yes or no to what's offered. And of course, saying yes or no is dependent on so many factors. if someone offers you a job that you don't particularly want to do, but you're getting paid to do it, then you have to do it if you've got to feed your children. You know, it's sometimes.
The same sort of passion in that aspect. You know,
Say again, sorry.
If you get a script and you don't particularly want to do, but you need, like you say, you need to support your family. Do you put the same passion into that as you would?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, there's a you know, there are marginals throughout it, but I would never ever agree to do a job if I wasn't going to absolutely commit 100% to doing my very best in it. You know, because that's really unprofessional and just not a very good way of being in any case. You know, I think I think that whatever you do, you should engage with it with the utmost positivity that you can. But you know, if you're maybe struggling with a part or in a play, you know, that's another part of a learning curve. You know, you go through this stuff.
Yeah. Plus, as well, when you do it, it can turn out better than you thought it would anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and in the end, you know, all you can do as far as your bit in it is your best, and you keep your fingers crossed that people will like it. But at the end of the day, that's not your responsibility. People's reaction to a piece of work is what it will be, and if they like it, that's great, and if they don't, well, that's unfortunate. But you have no control over that, you know, and you have to really let it go.
Cool, yeah. Another question from Mr. Matt Whiteman. Did you enjoy being a detective with Saran Jones on Scott and Bailey, and how did you prepare for the role?
Yeah, Scott and Bailey was a really special job because I got to work with the most wonderful female colleagues, Saran and Amelia Bullmore, who played Jill, our boss, two utterly delightful women in their own right, and also incredibly talented actresses. So it was a dream of a job. And then everybody else who worked on the show, all the actors, all the crew, you know, because we did 5 series. So there was always this sense of a family coming back together when we reunited to do another series. And then Sally Wainwright, who's one of the most prolific and you know, most loved TV writers of her generation, inventing these wonderful, complicated, 3-dimensional female characters. It was a dream of a job. And you know, before we started the first series, we did some, you know, we met police officers and we talked to them about the job, and you know, that detective drama, rather like Line of Duty, was investigating at very close quarters how the police do their job. And you know, sort of, that was one of the great sort of new things about the show then, was that they really went into detail with the police procedure. But then of course the divine thing about our show too was that the public face of Scott and Bailey was one thing, their private lives were another. So you got to sort of see just how disastrous some of that was. So I thought it was a really great, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons it was so popular, is that there was a really good mixture in there of domestic chaos and really on point professional, you know, the professional machinations of the police. It worked really well.
So with your other roles that you've done, do you always get the chance to research your role in a similar way, if possible?
Yes, sometimes. I mean, if you're playing a role where someone has a very specific job and it's important that you look like you know what you're doing, then hopefully you've got the time to maybe go and chat to someone or do a bit of research. And then, you know, a lot of the other thing, when you say research, it's just about doing a lot of investigation into the script, figuring out sometimes why people are doing, you know, being like a sleuth, an amateur psychologist. You're working out why people do what they do, say what they say, why they don't like another character in the drama, why they're in love with someone who behaves very badly, you know, etc. So yeah, I mean, you always do that, always. But a lot of that you have to do on your own if there isn't time for rehearsal.
Mm. And then does it like come over into your real life? Do you start analysing people for a short time afterwards while you're going through that process?
I think, to be honest with you, that the job of, you know, I don't think it's any accident that a lot of actors become psychologists and analysts and therapists.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, if they decide that they don't want to be actors anymore, because I think it's a sort of natural terrain for an actor. We're nosy. We want to understand why people do what they do.
Yeah. Plus we're from up north as well.
Yeah.
Lorraine, she's part of the Bravo 22 team as well, and she's also from Bradford. But she likes to ask, do you have a favourite character from all that you have played?
No, I don't. Is the short answer. I don't. You know, I think the responsibility that you have every time you take on a part, either on stage or in front of the camera, is that you never judge that person. So if you're playing someone who murders, you try to figure out why, and that person will have very good reasons for doing what they do. So you follow that. But I try not to judge the people that I'm playing, if they're doing awful things or they're behaving in a difficult way. But I don't have a favorite. I would say that every character that I'm about to play is my favorite.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, as you know, Bravo 22 is based on therapy through the arts, and it's for veterans of the military. What is your link with the military environment?
Well, I'm a patron of a great supporter of the British Legion, and I also my father was fought in the Second World War, and he wasn't traumatized and disabled in any shape or form by what he had experienced, but for men in the 40s and the way that they were schooled to hold themselves together and not talk about what has happened, I think it affected him, and I think it affected the way that he was able to show his emotion or say that he loved people, or it was hard. It was hard for that generation of men and women. And so, I adored him. I loved him. He was an incredible man. And so becoming involved with the British Legion was a way of connecting to him, and maybe retrospectively, because he's no longer with us, retrospectively honouring his memory. And I'm also involved with a group called Theatre of War that aim to help veterans who've come back from theatre of war and maybe have very bad or are on the fringes of PTSD, and are finding that challenging and finding it difficult to talk about what's happened to them, and feeling that they need to be strong. So that's really my connection with the British Legion, is that I feel that men and women who are in the services protect us, are selfless, are brave and bold, and are deserving of support and respect.
Thank you. I think we all agree with that one. Do you think how does the creativity help with well-being and good mental health within the acting circle?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think being part of a part of a group that comes together. And I mean, in lots of ways, I'm about to do a play, and I have to I'm actually playing someone in this play who's part of the military, and I went and did a little bit of military training last week. And what was very interesting about that is that the comradeship that exists for men and women in the armed forces is akin to the comradeship that exists in the emergency services, for example, but also in it, I would say, is what happens in a rehearsal room or on a set. Everybody is pulling towards making something, doing something, being part of something. And so I think in lots of ways, recreating maybe what you feel as someone from the military in a creative environment is just it's just same coin but different side. And I think that if you're talking about as I was saying before, why people do things or how they feel, or what something means, is that can actually unlock things inside you too. You can start to think about yourself and things that bother you, things that make you angry, things that make you sad, things that you thought at the time you didn't give any thought to, and then suddenly think, oh no, actually that was quite significant, or all of that. So I think the arts, as people finding fame and fortune is one thing, but there's a whole subsection to the arts that's not to do with having your face in the newspapers or on TV. It's actually just about being part of a youth orchestra or a youth drama group or an amateur dramatic society, and it gives enormous sort of pleasure and outlet to so many people. It's not just about the arts are not just about being famous and being photographed. It's actually about connection. And it's if you can sing in a choir and or play an instrument in an orchestra, that's incredible. It's wonderful for you to do, and it's wonderful for people to hear.
Yeah, like you say, it's being part of a team, part of a family, a different family to actually your blood family, and it's knowing who you can rely on and who's there for you. And like you were saying before, when you're acting different roles, but you're bringing something out of yourself that must be in there, sort of thing, and gives you that chance to help other people in that way.
Yeah, you're bringing out your version of it. Yeah,
great. Oh, this is another one from Matt. It says you made a range of jewellery for the poppy shop. How did that come about? And do you have any other creative passions other than acting? And it's before to say.
Okay, so well, I got asked if I'd be interested, and I thought that it was a really lovely idea. I happen to like quite sort of delicate jewelry, and so that was a really interesting process to engage with. I mean, honestly, I just think sometimes that if you do something like that and you happen to be someone that people recognize, that it kind of maybe it piques people's interest, and then they come along and then they'll support the poppy shop. So but I wouldn't describe myself as a jewelry designer in any shape or form. I do what I do, and probably best to stick at that. But the thing that I do other than acting is I write, and at the moment I'm trying to write a novel. So I'm like 30,000 words into writing the first draft of a novel. So I've got about another 60 to go. So I'm
fingers crossed. Have you done that during lockdown then? And do you think the theatre has been irreparably damaged by closures forced upon it by the current pandemic. That's from Mark Whitehouse.
Yeah, no, well, I really hope that it hasn't. I mean, I think what's interesting is that the minute tickets went on sale for exhibitions, music,
Yeah.
theatre, they were sold out within, it went like that. And I think that that proves that there is a real appetite for live performance. And I also think that, the consumption and the chatter that was on the go throughout the lockdowns about what people were watching on TV and what they loved and what floated their boat and all the rest of it. Again, sometimes the arts industry in the UK is not treated in a particularly respectful way, either by the media or by the government in terms of the way that it deigns to fund public arts institutions. But I think that really, along with sport and science, the health of a nation is held in the way that we look after our arts and our artistic communities, not just in London, but across the board. And what would be disastrous if, because of the lockdown, everything suddenly became incredibly centralized again, and the only places that were able to afford to open were in big cities. It's really important that we continue to fund and support art centres and groups that go all over the UK. And I really hope that maybe there will be a conversation about the importance of that, and that that there is a real contribution that the arts, not just actors and plays and TV shows, but music and exhibitions and dance, that that there's a conversation about how important those things are, and that if it wasn't for the way that things were streamed online, the Royal Opera House and the National Theatre and all of those shows, all of those TV shows and films that people watch, that the artistic community is really valuable to the public. People want it, so let's enable it. Let's fund it properly. Let's make it available to kids at school, and give them an alternative to the awful things that are going on in the world. Give them a means of expressing themselves.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Lesley, we're coming near to the end of our little chat. I could chat to you forever over a cup of tea or what's coming up today that we can look out for you?
Okay, so funnily enough, tonight at 9 o'clock on Channel 4, Before We Die, which is a Scandi noir show that originated in Sweden but has been redone for the UK, Bristol Noir. So that's 9 o'clock, Channel 4 tonight. That's fantastic. And then you can stream all the episodes after on All 4. So that's happening tonight. And also I will be doing a show on stage, but I've been asked not to say anything about it because the theatre wants to announce it next week. But that's my next most immediate thing. And so I start rehearsals for that on June the 21st, and it opens on August the 4th. So there we are.
That's great. Would that be in London?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for a great interview, Lesley. It's given us such an insight into what you do, and thank you for tuning in and watching it. And like she said, Channel 4 this evening at 9 p.m. Before We Die. Keep an eye on all social media for future Bravo 22 events, because there's nothing coming up at the moment. But thank you, Lesley, once again, and thank you for tuning in to our Bravo 22 YouTube channel.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.